Today I am looking forward to discuss what is receiver operating characteristic ROC and area under curve AUC. This is a very important topic in data science. ROC is a quantitative analysis for binary classification of continuous variable based on some established threshold value or cutoff value. Back in the history, in the World War II, radar receiver operators would be working on various radar blip signals to associate every blip with a enemy aircraft or a noise which could be a bird. Let's look at this radar. Here we see lots of blips which are due to enemy aircraft, and each of them has a associated number that is the odds it is a enemy aircraft, and fortunately all of them are well above 50%. And now here are some of the blips due to birds, and this one have probability less than 50%. And how does it look when you see both together? So now here we see various blips due to bird and due to enemy aircraft. And now let's look at this in a different angle. Let's use two normal distribution to analyze this. Here we see a normal distribution specifically for enemy aircraft, and this one is a true positive scenario because whenever we identify an enemy aircraft, we call it a positive signal. And it's true because our predicted and actual do match, so we call this a true positive. Here comes a true negative, that is, whenever there is a blip due to a bird, and that is a negative, and it's true because the predicted and actual do match. But always the true negative and the true positive are not well separated like this. There are times they overlap each other. In that case, it becomes very challenging to identify the true negative and true positive. Let's look at this diagram. Here we have two normal distribution. They kind of overlap on each other. So on the right is true positive and on the left is true negative. But if you look the true positive, the normal distribution do go below 50%. And when it goes below 50%, the enemy aircraft, we identify that as a negative case, and which is a false. So we call this false negative. And in statistics, false negative has another name. It's called type 2 error. And a type 2 error is one where we miss to detect a enemy aircraft. Now let's look at a true negative scenario, and a bird sometime do have probability which is more than 50%. And for this our radar signal will associate that as a positive, and which is not accurate, so we call it as a false positive, and which one in statistics we call it as a type 1 error. And type 1 error is a false alarm. That means when you have a bird, we associate that with a aircraft, and maybe we might take initiative to knock it down. So if you knock down a bird thinking it's an enemy aircraft, it's not a good idea. So what we would like to do is, we don't want to waste our bullets to knock down the bird. In that case, the threshold value, which is right now at 50%, we can push it up to above 50, and the green line would be the new threshold value. And whenever it is above the new threshold, then we will identify that with enemy aircraft, and whenever it's below that threshold, we will identify that with a bird. But the downside of this situation is, whenever there is an enemy aircraft, it's possible we may ignore that thinking it's a bird. So for that, if you think the cost of missing an enemy target is more than missing a bird, then what we can do is, we can move our target to below 50%, by which we make sure we don't miss any of our enemy target, but there would be times that we would misclassify a bird. That's okay because the cost of enemy aircraft is more than cost of a bird. Now, moving on to next page, let's talk about threshold value. How do we determine what our threshold value should be and who makes the decision on that? To understand this, let's take an example of a medical test. Here we have two normal distribution, and in this we are doing a medical test on a various patients. Some patients turn out positive and some turn out negative. And if a patient who is positive sometimes do have probability less than 50, and most of the time they have probability above 50. And if it's less than 50, we call it false negative, and if it's above 50%, then it is a true positive. That's good. And what happens if a patient is positive but our prediction turns out to be negative? This is going to cost us really high because we are going to ask the patient to go home saying that he is good, where in fact we should not have let him go home. Instead, we should be looking further. Now, let's think of a case where a patient is negative, but for some reason the test came out positive, and because the probability was more than 50%, we call that a false positive. So now, whenever a patient turns out positive, we would do a subsequent test. And whenever a patient comes negative, we would ask him to go home. If that is the scenario, then what we should do is cost of missing a positive patient is more than cost of missing a negative patient. So why don't we move our threshold to a lower value by which we don't miss any positive patient, and if a patient is negative, then the odds, there may be time a patient is negative but he may come with a positive result because we moved our threshold low, but it's okay because we would do one more test to confirm which was not accurate. So the business decision when to move a threshold is normally taken by the business side, and they would come with a conclusion saying the cost of missing a type 1 error and type 2 error, which is going to cost us more. Based on that, we make the decision. Now let's look into one more example of spam email. In a spam email, if a email comes in which is not for us, or if it's a spam, the goal is to move that into a spam folder. And if an email is a good one, we call it a ham. That means that should go into inbox. So now, what is the cost of missing a spam email? If you miss a spam email, that email will go to your inbox, which I feel is not expensive at all, because if you see few spam emails in your inbox, you can go ahead and delete that. On the other hand, you have an important email, ham, and you miss it and that goes into spam, that can be very expensive to you because maybe an important email has come for you. So based on this, we can say as ham emails are important, we can move the threshold value to above 50%. And if you do increase your threshold value above 50%, then you will not miss a ham email, but there are times some spam would come into your inbox, which I feel is okay because most of the spam was detected, few of them were missed. That goes into your inbox and which would be taken care by you. Folks who are interested to do some programming with this concept, I just wanted to introduce these two pieces of code. One is predict proba, is a method which method would tell you the probability of a particular logistic regression, and then you have a binarize, a class in which you can determine a threshold value, and based on that it would say whether the particular event is positive or negative. So if you are interested in Python programming, then I would ask you to check these two pieces of code as well, predict, proba, and binarize. Okay, let's move on to next page. So now we are going to look into confusion matrix. And confusion matrix is applicable whenever we are dealing with logistic, or we are dealing with binary or even ordinal variables. So in a binary variables, we have two conditions. In actual, one is positive and one is negative. And when you predict, once again there are two options. It can be positive or negative. So in total there are four combinations. That is, in reality a particular record or a particular event is positive and you predict as positive, which we call it as a true positive because your actual and predicted are the same and you hit it right. And there are times in reality or actual it is negative and you predict it as negative. That is totally good because a event which is correctly rejected is a true negative case, and which is a good model that it's able to identify a negative as negative. But the challenge comes with false positive and false negative. That is, a particular event is negative and by mistake we predict that as a positive. So that is a false positive and this is a false alarm. And on the other hand, if you have a event which is positive but you predict it as negative, that is false negative, and we call that type 2 error, where you miss to detect a particular positive event. So the two greens are good and the two reds are the error which our model should minimize. So now, looking at the confusion matrix, whenever you want to have a good confusion matrix or a good model, what we do is we add the true positive and true negative, and we keep that in the numerator, and in denominator we add all four. And if this ratio is higher, that is a good model. So in future, if you are looking for you want to compare few models, look at the accuracy. See the sum of true positive and true negative against the sum of all events, and that will tell you the efficiency or how accurate the model is. Is this always true? Not necessary. Sometimes this may not be valid. Say we are doing a project with Down syndrome, and one in every 1,000 children have Down syndrome. And say I have a dumb model, and this dumb model, the logic is any input comes in, it would say that the child doesn't have Down syndrome. That's my model. Any input you give in, it gives positive result, true positive, saying that it is a positive circumstances or positive situation. In fact, this model, if you look at the accuracy, it will be very close to 1. That means it's a perfect model. Because only 1 in 1,000 kids are going to have Down syndrome, and I am going to be right 999 times. So my model is great. But then why do we need a model if my model is so dumb and it's going to say every child is normal? So these kind of circumstances are the ones we want to handle in a better way. So for that, we come with new kind of measurement, and that is precision. So in precision, what we do is we look at predicted positive circumstances only, that is TP and FP. So we see what are the total true positive out of true positive and false positive. So I call it true positive over predicted positive. That is precision of our model. And you have a recall of a model, that is true positive over actual positive, which is true positive over true positive plus false negative. So when you combine these two things together, you can come with a new measure called F-score, which is a harmonic mean between precision and recall. And that one in equation term, it looks precision time recall over precision plus recall, and you multiply that with 2 to get the F-score. So F-score has both precision and recall built into it. And there are two other measures, which is false omission rate and fallout rate. Okay, and you can see the formula for that is false negative over predicted negative and false positive over actual negative. Okay, let's move on to next page, and now we are talking more about receiver operating characteristic curve. So let's look at this normal distribution. Here I have some blue data points and some green data points. Mostly when it's a green data point, we call it positive, and for blue, we call it negative. But now we have this threshold value, and this threshold value, when I move up or down, my model efficiency or performance changes. So let's have a plot here on the right hand side, where on the x-axis I have false positive rate, which is false positive over false positive plus true negative, and on the y-axis I have true positive rate, which is true positive over true positive plus false negative. Okay, so now think of it, if my model is very good, it needs to have high true positive rate and low false positive rate. So it should be on the left top corner if my model is perfect or it's very good. And if my model is on the straight line, on the straight diagonal line, that means it's a random event as good as tossing a coin. There is no intelligence there. So a good model would be far away from this diagonal straight line, and it should be as close as possible to the top left corner. Okay, now let's look at this two normal distribution. And what I am going to do is I am going to move my threshold all the way to the left. So when I move my threshold all the way to the left, what is going to happen is I am going to have very high true positive rate and very high false positive rate, and I will be in the top right corner, that is the point 21, right? Because my false positive is going to be high, and also my true positive points, which is all the green dots, are going to be high. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my threshold value all the way to the right. If I move my threshold value all the way to the right, and if you see this scenario, right now I calculate what is my false positive rate and what is my true positive rate, and both the values are going to be very low. It should be close to the T1 point on the graph, because both my true positive and false positive numbers are going to be very less. Okay, so that being said, now this is my receiver operating characteristic, where I can draw a point, various point on the graph by moving my threshold value all the way in between these two normal distribution, and I get various point on this plot, and I identify the plot which is closest to the top left corner, and that is the threshold I would like to use for my model. This way we make sure we have a good model. And many statisticians came with different approaches for this. And they came with a new concept called area under the curve, which we will be discussing soon. Now, moving on to the next page, let's analyze these three plots. So on the top, I have three graphs which shows true positive rate and false positive rate on the y-axis and on the x-axis. And this diagonal dotted line is toss of a coin. And if you see, I have a model right below that. If you see, there are two normal distribution, one in red and one in green, which is negative and positive. They are well separated. In that case, I can easily identify the positive from negative. In that case, my model is a perfect model which will say the ROC curve is touching at the top left corner, and I am able to 100% identify positive and negative. In this case, area under the curve is going to be 100% because it's a perfect model. Now let's look at the second one. In the second one, if you see, it's not perfect and it's not bad because these two normal distribution do overlap, but only for a certain region. That means only sometime the model gets confused, but for the most part it's able to identify the negative from positive. So in this case, let's say the area under the curve is 75%, because if you assume the total area under the curve is 100%, and we are able to predict for the most part, and we call 75%. And now let's look at the third one. Here the two normal distributions are one over the other exact, and no way model can guess what is right, whether it's positive or negative. We need to take some other strategy because the model would never guess it right, and this is as good as tossing a coin and saying positive and negative. In that case, the ROC curve will be a diagonal curve and it's 50%. So whenever you come into this kind of situation, just close the computer and toss the coin. Your success rate is same as running this model. Now before I end this presentation, let me end this in a lighter note. When I was teaching in a university, a student came to me and asked me that whenever you ask me true or false questions, I always go wrong. I don't know what I need to do to fix my answers. Professor, please advise what I need to do. And I said, the problem is very easy to fix. If you are always wrong with true or false, then first figure out the answer whether it's true or false. And once it is, you figure out the answer is true, just flip it and write false. And if you think the answer is false, flip it and write true. Then you will be 100% right. So why did I say this? Because if you have a model and if the model score comes less than 50%, something is going wrong with your model. Just flip it and that will give you better result. But in reality, you need to dig in and see why area under curve is less than 50%. In reality, that should not happen. Okay, with this I am done with this video, and I thank you for watching this video. And if you like my video, I would request you to go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Thank you and have a nice day.